formed. That's all there is to it. Dropping it does not mean that you don't live life again, because you still live life. But the holding on to those old ideals is the problem. Then you are still holding on to the unknown. To be very precise here, you are still holding on to the unknown. It's like holding on to the ancestral way of doing things, or your ancestral thoughts, or whatever it is, and then you are holding on to the unknown. The spirit sense comes into play. The spirit then take possession of you, takes control of your life. But if you give it up, and you have reformed your life, and you personally have your abilities, being exhibited in so many ways, you are not a religious person. You will not even think about practicing anything of the old part, but you will live your own life. I hope you sort of get the picture I'm trying to put out here. You will live your own life. You're not going to stand up in the morning or wake up from your bed thinking that whatever your eyes lay on may be bad or good based on a text that has been written 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. That you're not going to base your wrongs and rights on something which has been written millions of years ago that you don't even have a clue about. You're not going to base your reasons on what your grandfather told you. No, you don't. Just as you don't need that of your grandfather, who is just probably not too long ago passed away. So don't you also need those? So in the same way, you don't need that ancestor, which is someone that you don't even have a clue what sort of person he probably was, who has said what they have said, and you fall into it and say that they had it from a divine God. You see, the God of that time, if God was there at that time, he is there today. He lives today, because the idea of God is not that God dies. God doesn't die. He's alive. So if you believe that God is alive, then what is your problem? Then why won't you allow him to speak to you? Why won't you allow him to manifest if it is necessary for him to manifest in this stage? It's all up to him anyway. But that isn't the case. He hasn't done so. God hasn't done so purposely, maybe for a very good reason. Because we can function on our own in so many ways. In fact, we have functioned all this time that my very eyes could see. I clearly have seen that the human effort has functioned. But the spirit, this religious blending comes in with the idea, convincingly telling, with some frightening approach of, ways to put man into the state of believing that because there is an unseen divine being, he has been moving and directing and encouraging and giving feeding man with ideas, that because man cannot see those ideas, which is all fallacy. It is very much big time fallacy. You see, God already made the creation. Even these religious people, some of them also believe that God did it once and for all. You were created with the brains and the imagine that brains developed to get to that stage. Some people they acquire the IQ, a high IQ, by birth, by very much early stage. The brains develop from stage to stage and become very smart. So the natural abilities of man, of its brilliance and all whatever we have that makes us act and progress and do that, is not continually being fed in a sense of from a divine source. No, he already created the genius being that we are, has already come from the very beginning, the onset. But you have to mature to develop that brain or develop to become whatever it is. So it is not like you're being fed from another source of, sometimes I don't know how people might view this. It's like the stones that we see there. It is already a stone. It's been created. It is fixed, and that's it. The sun we see there, it is fixed. It is created. That's it. The human being, they are created. They are fixed, and that's it. Now that very sun that we see, has got a standard life. It doesn't change and does not gain more. Divine. Feeding or divine communication or divine contact at any point. He did it, he's far separated from it. Just like you having a child, a son or a daughter. At some point, your creation and your invention, your advices may be there, but at some point it goes boom. You don't advise that child anymore. I don't need my parental guidance at some point in my life anymore. Nowhere. I rather have to give mine to that child who is also trying to grow up, to mature and get that brain active to be ready to function on its own. So every living being or every living thing has got its functionality very much up to standard when he's very much matured and free from the state of being of growth. That's why in the scientific world it says that the body, an older person does not need that nourishment of which that baby needs. My nourishment is basically any little thing that goes in is fine, because the body does not need milk and those too much of a vitamin that a child might need. You've already grown. You're already set. Now, if in your time of growing, if you are unlucky and somehow you couldn't live to the state where you become fully able and you become disabled in the sense of mental disability, physical disability, whatever it is, that is the unfortunate thing that comes up in the times of the growth. But it is standard. That's it. How did you grow? You are being fed by food. This food, the metabolism in the food gets into you. The vitamins and all those things get into the body, and then it sort of matured that created being that you have created to become. So the very fixed creation have already been done. I don't sit here thinking that God has to be feeding me with wisdom every day. You see, the brain has matured. They say the brain has to start thinking and working to become very much functionable and also and perform the activities that I'm supposed to perform. That's it. This is the difference between that person who is not has not given himself to spiritual inspiration and has not ended up being possessed. All religious people, or some people, most people, anybody who ends up believing, except those who pretend. They pretend to use religion, but deep down their heart, they don't fall for those things. And you can see their common sense of approach. Most of those kind of people, if they are scribe or they are leaders in the religious sect, whichever, you can see their common sense of approach. But that person who clearly has given into spirit and believe that it is the spirit that will give him the positivity in life, the spirit that will give him the good decisions, the spirit that will help him to become very wise, is in doom, because you are waiting for God to give you some brains for you to pass an exams. That is a stupid thing ever that you ever find yourself into. You are waiting for God, the divine help, to help you to become what do you call it, talented in something. That is a deep mistake, and that is the core thing that is happening. Most religious people are stuck into that situation, and probably will find them doing an exam 1,000 times and never passing, or doing that person. And sometimes also some people have already become victims of it. People like me and I think thousands of people are in the same victimized state, which it wasn't intentional. They were kept into it, because I can have a child today, and my child, I will usher my child to religion. The child will grow, and the spirit will possess him. The spirit will eat him up. The spirit will possess the child and grow with the child and control the child, and limits the child's ability to function as a human being. And it is not necessarily you being a witch or a wizard. That is a whole different thing, because witches and wizards also are people who are in a state where they are completely being dominated by the spirit. Spirit domination is not a good thing. It's not a healthy thing. It doesn't bring the progress. I mean, any person who is spiritually progressing, he is spiritually progressing. And that is the word in its fullness. He is spiritually progressing. He is not humanly progressing. So his progression has nothing to do with that dynamism that we see of a human being, or the uniqueness of a human being. That progressiveness of that person is spiritual, is a complete spirit progression. So you cannot give any credit